Implement technology is the most difficult thing because those days TMS was not available off the shelf in India.
8 months. Still, it's a quite short time.
Supply chain execution cost, which is logistics cost, which is freight and warehousing. There is always it is not escalating, it is deflating.
Okay, so my first question, you started your career in 1989, right? From L&T, then Wipro, then HCL, and all of a sudden you shifted to Excelogic, which is 1998,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
why you take this step, right? From manufacturing to all of a sudden logistics?
Actually, I came into logistics by an accident. Actually,
Okay.
a physical accident. I had a accident when I was with HCL, and that actually put me at home for almost a year.
Okay.
So once I couldn't get out because of that severity of that accident. Actually, after that, I came into logistics because I was involved with an organization which was setting up pumps, fueling stations on the
Mhm.
highways and across all over India. So one of those investors actually started Excel Logistics in India.
Okay, and it was in 1998, right?
1998, when the express cargo industry was very small.
Mm-hmm.
So we started the express cargo industry side there at that point. When you actually go to a customer with a card talking about logistics, I remember they used to send us to the IT department. It was so early in those days.
It was also one of the first tech-enabled 3PL, right?
Yes, yes.
How was the
Believe me,
experience over there?
it was actually, the tech enablement came because of my experience with the tech world, both in HCL and Wipro. There were a lot of opportunities. Actually, the tech enablement happened because we won the first 3PL for, IBM in India.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that was with a, distribution center, master distribution center in Bangalore, and, the material coming in from their factory from Pondicherry. So there were initiatives like truck tracking. Believe me, line of sight radio wave tracking we implemented from Pondicherry to Bangalore at that point of time. We gave EPOD to the customer so that they were able to deposit the checks of their distributor much faster than after they get their POD. So it was, well before time. Technology is the easiest thing to do. Implement technology is the most difficult thing.
True, true. I'll come to that part later on, but I wanted to know more about this Excelogistics journey. So, what was the major thing which you did, right? Did you automate the entire? You mentioned you would automate the tracking part, right, and the EPOD part. What else you did in that time?
See, the approach to managing transport business was very manual those days. Okay. And if you basically look at, see, full truckload business, there is absolutely no challenge other than challenging the vendor, managing the vendor. That's the
Right.
challenge. But if you basically look at hub and spoke transportation, volumes and riding on optimization of these routes and volumes actually gives you money.
Mm.
So if you
True.
basically look at yield, those days the yield was about 20 rupees, 24 rupees per kg.
Right.
Unheard of. Today you cannot even think about those kind of yields. Whether
Right.
you look at all majors who operate, they don't get those kind of yields. But that time there was a lot of, I would say, the major problem then was a revenue leakage. In terms of looking at what kind of pricing you do for your trunk lanes and your BAs, how efficient they deliver, how consolidation efficiency was there. So we built a ground up system because those days TMS was not available off the shelf in India. So we built our own TMS. I believe those were the Visual Basic days, and we built our network was also reported in those days, a magazine called Voice and Data. So building the network was very essential because you had only dial-in modems at that point of time. And
True.
what we did was we linked all the major regional hubs using vSATs.
Hmm.
Okay. And all the branches dialed into the regional office
Hmm.
uh, through the dial-in connectivity.
Okay. Okay.
So we were almost real time, almost real time,
Hmm.
because when you operate on such kind of, you know, applications, you have data replications and, which takes time, which is periodic. But at least by end of the day, we were almost real time and a very
Hmm.
cost effective network, very cost effective network.
What was the time you took to build the entire solution from end to end?
8 months.
8 months. Still, it's a quite short time. Like there are people who are building this kind of solution in house, and there are years and years
1998,
there. Yeah,
1998, it was a very, very short time.
very short time. Very short time. Okay, what was the major challenge? As you mentioned, the implementation of digitalization in logistics, which still are a huge challenge. There are lots of companies. Even if I talk about L&T or maybe any bigger company, they still do lots of manual work. What is the major challenge as per you, whether it's 1998 or whether it's 2023? What is the major challenge? Why people are not adopting this automation?
To be very candid, Pratik, the
8 months. Still, it's a quite short time.
biggest challenge is culture. I would elaborate on that, but anybody who hears me on this, they will also understand what is the culture challenge which
Right.
companies have in implementing these kind of solutions.
Hmm.
Second is, if I see today, if you look at what is not available in tech,
Hmm.
you take every silo of logistics execution, you have enough and more solutions, very
True.
intelligent solutions, which is there. But still, you see, there is a big gap. When you go to the service user side, you
Hmm.
still see a big gap, and that is the culture gap.
True.
If we
True.
can break that culture gap, or supply chain managers who are able to break that culture gap, you see those companies have really done well, and it's now no more a challenge.
Hmm.
So
So how anyone? Yeah,
visibility
yeah,
is
please.
something which everybody started with. Okay.
Hmm.
And you see today, even today, if you look at the entire logistic tech space, 95, 96% of all solutions are still focused on visibility, and we still don't have a visible, logistics execution with the service user happening. So this makes people think.
Hmm. So how anyone can sort it out, right? See, culture, like it's there from very long, right? You have seen the entire industry growth, right? You have seen the evolution. I can see, like, I can definitely say that you have seen what was there, what was in middle in starting 20s, what is right now in just take it, right? And there's so many now AI is here, right? So you have seen the transformation from landline to mobile, then mobile to app, then app to laptop, and now the AI is here, right? What is everyone missing? Why our industry, logistic industry, is not growing or automating faster than any other industry?
Don't take me wrong if I make this statement. One of the prime reasons has been that technologists build applications in logistics.
Hmm.
So, see, I always believe that, adoption of technology, and in the last 10 years, if you see, adoption of technology is cleared by the management only if there is a perceptible, visible ROI coming out. Okay.
Mhm.
And if you look at logistics execution cost, there is, unlike any other, if you look at procurement, if you look at IT, in budgets, there is always an escalation clause. But
True.
if you look at supply chain execution cost, which is logistics cost, which is freight and warehousing, there is always it is not escalating, it is deflating actually. So supply chain managers are supposed to be spend managers, and they are given a deflation target year on year.
Hmm.
Conventional logic, you grow 15%, your volume grows, so you are able to get efficiency with consolidation. But tell me, who does consolidation? So that is what I talked about from a culture perspective. But then the biggest challenge which I see in this space is there has been a lot of lip service of partnerships, between the logistics service users and providers.
Mm-hmm.
This partnership today is easily possible by APIs. Very simple.
True. True.
But is the guy who takes data ready to process that data? Does he have systems to process that data?
Mm-hmm.
And the people who give the data, are they giving the relevant data which is making sense to the user? This is where
Mm-hmm.
the problem is. And the problem, is more pronounced because even today, logistics works in silos.
Mm-hmm.
Every tech provider tries to break the silo, but at the end of the day, because of profitable financial compulsions, they go and focus into the silo where they are initially successful,
Mm-hmm.
and then they continue there.
Right. Right. True, true. So you also mentioned one very important point that in manufacturing company, especially in manufacturing company, the budget for other departments are increasing and for logistics is decreasing, right? You have also worked on planning of logistics for bigger organization, right?
Yeah,
How anyone can plan their logistics? Because every year people think, even our government also mentioned that logistic cost is higher than any other cost in entire supply chain, right? So, and they're also trying to reduce, government also trying to reduce, every company also try to reduce, right? So as a owner perspective, it's correct. I might be wrong, but it's correct that
correct,
logistic cost
correct,
is high. I wanted to reduce, right?
correct.
But how they can plan it? Because you have worked it, so you'll be the better person to answer this.
See, if you basically look at uh, I would talk about connected logistics. Okay,
Oh.
planning was another silo at some point of time. Okay,
Hmm.
so if you look at planning horizons from a manufacturer's perspective, so you have demand planning, you have sales. I mean, you have supply planning. Okay, you have dispatch planning. Now, dispatch plans are, they're not really sacrosanct in the
Hmm.
entire planning horizon. So obviously, that is the kind of importance which is basically given to logistics planning.
True.
Okay, so the transition from a monopolistic trend to competitive landscape. If you basically look at 15 years before, planning was more about replenishment.
True.
Okay, because if you basically look at multi-tier distribution majors,
Hmm.
which are FMCG companies, consumer durable companies, white goods, they had targets for the distributor.
True.
So based on the target for the distributor, there were quota allocations. So
Hmm.
in a quota allocation system, manufacturing was the Murphy. That are you able to produce that much?
Right.
Now, what has happened is with the sales channels changing drastically,
Hmm.
the weight per consignment has come down drastically,
Hmm.
making it unviable for the profitability of the product to be maintained in the last mile.
Hmm.
So obviously, the archaic planning tools are not enough,
True.
and especially planning tools were based on forecasting. And
Hmm.
forecasting it was also done because there was a unseen element in those eras of forecasting.
True.
But today, with data being available real time, it is not about forecasting. It is about riding this data to capture pattern recognitions in the market. And based on a pattern recognition, are you able to catch the trend and design your fulfillment strategies based on the pattern and the trend is more important.
Hmm.
Okay. So, there are a lot of solutions around the world, and some of the solutions have been very keen to look at the pattern recognition part of forecasting in logistics. I'm not getting
Hmm.
into my unknown territory of planning cycle for manufacturing and all. I'm talking about fulfillment forecasting, which used to be called as dispatch planning way back,
Hmm.
has become more important. Now,
Hmm.
my experience of how to do this, we took up a project with a very large chemical, an adhesive manufacturing company. When we quoted for the same, we were a wild card entry, very small guys.
Mm.
You had all the major, planning companies in the world, but we were basically able to focus on this pattern recognition based replenishment forecasting for
Okay.
distribution.
Mm.
And distribution is all aligned to your network design also. So if
Mm.
there is, you cannot do a network design once for all and then, say that this will all exist every time. No, this is dynamically changing. And because that we focused on that in the country of Japan, we
Mm.
were able to drastically reduce their logistics cost while increasing efficiency. We did about 26% saving. So
Huge
this
number.
26% was a payload they were carrying all the while. Now you
Mm.
take away 26%, the delta you will get year on year will be very small after that.
Right.
But at least you are able to identify the dead weight, what you are carrying.
Mm.
And again, there should be an openness from the service user to recognize that it is not see, you do all the planning, okay? And you say that I'm going to save 10% of logistics cost this year.
Mm.
And when you take those assumptions, you say that, I'm going to do 60% FTL, 40% PTL. And in PTL, I will look at, consolidation efficiencies. These are all possible with the very high-tech tools which are available today. And I would say these are all AC room plannings.
True.
But when it comes to the dispatch clerk who actually dispatches the material, how does he know that you have taken these assumptions?
True.
Your ERP doesn't allow you to do any of those things. It doesn't.
True.
First of all, the ERPs don't talk. They are four-wall systems.
Right.
And if you want these ERPs to be connected to anything which is progressive, you pay through your nose. So most of
Mm.
the service users don't use. So the critical part is if you take assumptions based on intelligent information, and if your actual logistics distribution clerk, the lowest paid person in the whole chain, is the most critical guy to ensure that you create your savings on the ground. So there should
Mm.
be solutions for him at the edge of supply chain planning. Solutions should be available for him, without which whatever big talk we do on planning life cycle and horizons and all that would just fail.
Wow, so many things I can get in this, one statement. So I just wanted to, go deeper on this part where you have mentioned that you saved 26%, and that's a huge number in terms of if people are not able to understand the meaning of 26% in logistics, they don't know what number it is, right? So what exactly you did? Can you little bit explain that so people can, get more idea?
Okay, it's not big rocket science. Okay,
Mm.
the rocket science, let's keep it for the planning life cycles. But when
Mm.
it comes to implementing hands-on logistics, now you take any mid-tier, FMCG or a consumer durable side.
Mm.
Okay. Now, let's say footwear. Any of those, erratic life cycle, fulfillment cycle products. So if you look at India and if you look at, let's say 25,000, 30,000 distributors, people
Mm.
have. Now, 90% or 99% of warehouses which does fulfillment
Mm.
have a standing instruction.
Okay. Mm.
So in every industry, they map and say that 90 boxes to a 407 or
Mm.
120 boxes to a 407.
Mm.
Now, as we discussed earlier, the order life cycles are becoming short.
Right.
The
Right.
order quantities are becoming short. So how do you live in this world where your replenishment is in smaller lots?
True.
So you will have to look at what is the consolidation.
Mm.
Now, what happens is you get an order for, let's say, 80 boxes.
Mm.
The instant reaction, because that guy who does this fulfillment, he is also stressed. Okay. And you know that in this business, you tend to hire as less number of people.
Mm.
You're a 3PL, you will hire as less number of 3PL, people, because you want to keep your business profitable.
True.
What happens is, in this context, the moment his instant response is, Acha, okay, 88 boxes, PTL.
Mm.
Okay. Now
Mm.
what happens? 88 boxes at 3 rupees or 4 rupees per kg cost versus what has been the cost of this 407 which was going. Let's say 5,000 rupees.
Mm.
Maybe 5,000 rupees even for 88 boxes would be cheaper.
Mm.
I'm just taking one example. Now, how do you help the actual dispatcher, the edge of supply chain planning with every order? So you let's say, with all the beautiful things which are all around us, you have a finite set of orders to be shipped a day.
True.
Okay. So let's say
Mm.
I have 100 orders, and these orders, if companies have a cutoff, very rarely, because sales will override logistics. They'll say, even at 5 o'clock, if the order comes 6:30, it has to go. Okay.
True.
So that's life. I mean, we have to accept it, and
Mm.
they're also right, because sales brings revenue. So you will
Right.
have to comply, because the company is there to sell. So we can say
Mm.
that you should have a cutoff at 2 o'clock. Then I plan. Then I dispatch at 5. Next day you get it. But if that material goes out of the shelf, they lose sales. So they are 100% right. So we'll have to see, these are, when I say cultural elements, this cultural elements remains as a matter of dispute between sales and logistics always. But I'm
Mm.
saying this also has to be factored as an
Mm.
element in any solution which is given to the edge of supply chain planning. So what we did was very simple, that in our solution, we gave the capability to that edge of supply chain guy, that he puts a dump of his orders, and the system gives him directional loads.
Mm.
Okay. Maybe it doesn't happen first week, second week, because of this queue of orders, but definitely in the third and fourth week, there is directional orders, but unfortunately, because of standing instructions, they still do PTL.
Mm. Correct. The freedom is not there for the
Freedom is
logistic
not.
team.
Okay. So, but why freedom is not there? Obviously, out of sight, out of control. So, for that is how the control systems exist in logistics.
Mm.
You know, transporter contracting is another control system. You know,
Right.
transporter allocation. So, if you basically look at contracted transporters, there will be about 10,
Mm.
but actively used transporters, 1 to 2.
Right. Right.
Why? Because there is no way of imposing or structuring a protocol across your logistics execution process, because solutions are also siloed. There is no
Mm.
ERP or there is no SAP in logistics.
True.
And any SAP which comes in logistics has to be an enterprise out solution,
Mm.
where you will have to link in anybody from Excel sheet to no Excel sheet. Okay.
True.
Forget APIs. Nobody creates APIs in this business, at least in India. It's
Yeah.
all Excel sheets.
So.
So if you live to learn with Excel sheets, you will be able to solve the problem. This is how we are able to, every order, we ensured that there is a mechanism which will benchmark the logistics cost, unit logistics cost, and then the dispatch happens, and without allowing or without the need for the dispatch guy to do anything.
Mm.
So it was a system driven solution. If he overrides, he has to also clearly state why he is overriding this option.
Mm. And when was like it was back early 20s?
No, no. This was exactly very soon after the COVID.
Oh, that's
This
impressive.
is
That's really, give me two, three thoughts. The first, like you mentioned correctly, that lots of people who are working on Excel, and few of our client also asked to, integrate Excel so they can directly dump the Excel file, and we did it, and they are very happy now. So I'll like to
Pratik,
ask.
I'm sorry to barge in here. as a solution vendor, it is the compulsion of working with Excel sheets of customers.
True.
But if you ask me, is that the right way to do it? That's absolutely not the right way to do it. But again, the culture fit comes in here, and there is a lot of compulsion to work along with Excel sheets. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's true, sir. Even you cannot, if you wanted to change the entire operation, first you have to automate the operation which is already there.
Correct.
Then you have to
Correct.
implement new things, and this is what we are doing. So now two things I would definitely like to mention. You mentioned about SaaS, SAP. You mentioned about ERPs, right? There are lots of new SaaS companies, startups are there. You have mentored one or two companies, right? But no one so far no one become big like SAP. Right now, if you go to any manufacturing company, they need SAP. They know that there's a one solution: either I need SAP, either I need Oracle, I need ERP. But in logistics, they ignore, like they don't need any solution. Right? Why it's not happening? Why? What was the challenge with this all industry and startups?
So this is something which I really love to answer, because this is what I have been trying to solve, trying to speak, trying to write, and all that. See, traditionally, so I would like to bring your attention to one of the companies I work for, which is a company called Foursoft.
Hmm.
Foursoft was an early 2000 company. I got an opportunity to be a part of that startup.
Mhm.
We built the first net-centric application. So today you call it cloud. There was no
Right.
cloud in way back in 2000. And probably this was one of the first stable ERPs built on J2EE.
Hmm.
Probably,
Hmm.
because I still remember when we used to work on that, it took Java Bean 40 minutes to load. Okay.
Hmm.
So imagine where we started. So we
Right.
bet on the technology. We were able to create the solution for freight forwarders first, and
Hmm.
then transporters, and then we also built a multi-tenant architecture WMS.
Hmm.
This was world's first. This was world's first. The company went on to capture about 30% global market share in TMS. Okay. Now, that company was taken over by a few subsequent takeovers. Today, what you see as part of Blue Jay
Hmm.
is the product of Forza. Product iterations have
Oh.
happened. Okay. And Blue Jay has been bought over by E2 Open.
Hmm.
So there are companies like E2 Open which are trying to create a true SaaS, uh, you know, uh, enterprise-wide logistics execution application. Um, I mean, this needs a lot of big money to make it possible.
Hmm.
But what I was coming from the fact that logistics was always seen as an outsourced service provider. Okay. It's an outsourced function. So for a very long time, and very specific till COVID, people used to think that technology in logistics should exist with service providers.
Hmm.
Okay. Now you if you basically look at all these service providers, there is a conflict of interest.
Hmm.
The conflict of interest says that if you talk to any logistics service provider, the
Hmm.
less transparent they are, the more profit they make.
Hmm.
So you know uh, the transparency of data being given to the service user is controlled, throttled.
Hmm.
Okay. Now you look at the service user. Service user wants to reduce cost. Service provider wants to earn more profit.
True.
Okay. So technology integration between them will be on a need to know basis only.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, what happened was the service user also was happy. Now, even after so much of development, even globally, you look at what is the standard measure of reporting by a service provider to a service user.
Hmm.
99% even today is on DSR,
Hmm.
okay? The daily status report.
Hmm.
So with all the technology tools which are available, tracking, you talk about all those technologies which are available. The service user still goes to that Excel sheet report and
Yeah.
finds where his consignments are.
True. True.
Carriers give tracking of their containers,
Hmm.
but that's up to the service provider, which is the freight forwarder, to let them know where it is. Okay.
Hmm.
So the conflict between these two requirements is user always believe that service provider should invest into technology to give them visibility.
Hmm.
COVID changed everything. It was actually a post-COVID era when it started. It started with a realization of global supply chain saying that if we don't digitize and if we don't control execution, it is going to hit us real hard.
True. True.
Now suddenly there is a realization that you need tools which can work with an ERP, which
Hmm.
is an enterprise out tool, which will go there, fetch all this data, and keep him informed. Post COVID, Gartner says 1% of supply chains are digitized in this world.
Right.
And by 2030, about 26% of supply chains will digitize, creating a $85 billion connected logistics market. Now, will it happen? Now there is a need. Before
Hmm.
COVID, the service user need was limited.
Hmm.
Today, the need is very high. And today, if there are intelligent middlewares which have enterprise wide connectivity of logistics execution process exist, they are going to win in the
Hmm. True. True. Yeah, so but there's one more thing, though there are companies who are changing, they are adopting new technology. You talk about Blue Jay, right? So Blue Jay, we all know it's very costly solution, right? Only
yeah,
big companies can afford those kind of
yeah,
solutions, right? But there are mid-sized companies, there are small-sized companies, right? They also wanted to automate, they also wanted to adopt new technologies, and that's why startups are working. Startups like Traqo and other companies whom you have mentored, they are also, trying to do this for the mid-size and small size somewhere, not so big but not so mid also. The problem with that, those companies which I face, that they don't allow logistic team to talk to salespeople over this solution, or maybe to the client also, right? So let's give you an example. In a last mile, we receive message from Flipkart, Amazon that my material is coming, right? But if you talk about B2B in mid mile, right, there's a no communication happening to client that your truck or maybe your shipment will reach by this time or something like that. They wanted to keep it a hidden, that there's a cost, there's something.
yeah. So if you basically look at the Indian logistics spend, it's very interesting to note this. Okay, uh, some peg it at 290 or 320 billion, where all the technology intervention today is focused is in the last mile.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
most of it. Let's agree to this fact that any new entrepreneur thinking about a startup will look at how does he address the B2C market, okay, and
Right.
in the last mile connectivity. Now, official numbers say that this market is hardly 20-25 billion in logistics
Hmm.
spend. That's all. So if you remove that, and you remove about $20 billion in freight forwarding, and if you remove, you know, government spent road transportation, PDS, oil, gas, you get a resultant $200 billion virgin industry, B2B, where there is absolutely no, technology intervention with an intent to solve problems. And in that 200 billion, the biggest word is the, gate pass generated by NSA. Beyond that, there is no visibility.
True.
So what is happening is this industry would change. If we
Hmm.
bring, solutions for this industry, where this industry talks about, let's say, multiple sales channels. Okay. Now, one of the reasons why this has not happened is because there are distributor driven, general trade channel. Then there is appointment based modern format trade channels. There are rural trade channels where van sales and all those things happen. And then there is D2C, which is growing, where the customer does fulfillment himself. And then you have the e-com players through whom they sell, and also your real B2C, initiative where customers are trying to go to market and look at A-class retail outlets and sell them directly. Okay.
True.
So if you look at 5 or 6 sales channels, now any solution which comes up should be able to help the customer manage all these sales channels, because delivery to a distributor is a very predictive channel.
True.
Okay. That will become more challenging when smaller lot replenishment happens. As long as people keep sending full truckloads, the challenge is much limited. With better roads, better visibility, and all those things, the FTL challenges are coming down less and less. You have, you do SIM-based tracking. There are GPS tracking. So again, come to GPS. How many? 3%, 2%? I don't know. As long as this doesn't become a OEM product which is embedded into the truck, this does not get traction.
Right.
And the challenges in SIM-based tracking. It's at the whims and fancies of the driver. So, but it's much more better today. I should say that we are making progress leaps in this whole domain. But I'm still saying that by and large, this $200 billion logistics spend in B2B is actually not noticed because it's not a very, very, I would say, very celebrated spot. It is not a very celebrated spot to invest. So as long as investment don't come into this space, solutions also will not grow in this space.
Right. And even it's not about the celebration, also the challenge is very huge, right? So it will take years to years of, thinking and innovation, and then it will, like I can still recall just to shift one company from negotiation over the phone to a tool, which is a reverse auction bidding, right? It took us around 4 to 5 months to train them and make sure that they are doing rightly, right? Even after the reverse auction, they used to call transporter that, hey, this is not the correct rate, reduce it, right? And then again, this back and forth was happening. So, sir, the next question is
the question there is different.
Yeah.
Do they want to digitize procurement is the question.
That is also there.
The boardroom decision doesn't mean that it should happen.
Right. So I was coming there only. So as you implemented the technology over the years, right? How you deal with these people who are the bottom line, right? Because top line decide that I'll automate, middle line decide that okay, I'll help to automate, but the people who are going to work the bottom line, right? The people who are talking to transporter, the people who are doing the MIs, the people who are generating the LR, the people who are doing the gate in gate out, how these people you onboard and what make them to adopt the technology.
See, I have seen a great lot of change happening over the last 33 years I'm in this business. Okay.
True.
So if you looked at a distribution environment in the 90s, okay, up to late 90s, there was a sense of continuity of logisticians manning the projects. Okay. There was a very deep connect between the depot and the sales. Okay. So when I used to work in sales, I never had a problem of replenishment because the relationship between sales and the so-called distribution department those days, dispatch department, it was really aligned, you know.
Mm.
And imagine this alignment happened in a era where there were only land phones. Okay,
Mm.
so let's say for that company, I used to manage a 35 crore region.
Mm.
I have never broken my sweat managing that 35 crores in those days. So if you look
Mm.
at equivalent value of money today, it's close to about 300 crores. And what we don't do for 300 crore distribution, you know,
Right.
it's become a 24 by 7 engagement. So what
Correct.
I'm saying is, see, there are two perspectives. One, people who take decision to digitize is right because that's the need of the hour.
Mm.
Their objective of digitization is to get data for real-time decision making.
Mm.
But unfortunately, the data is generated way down their pay rank. Okay,
Right.
where the challenges are totally different. The
Mm.
challenge is that poor guy will have to work on multiple applications because, sorry to say this, digitization in India means more data entry. Okay, if
Accepted.
you
Yeah.
if you typically take a TMS or a WMS, okay, if a guy has to dispatch a consignment, they will have to go through at least 6 pages,
Mm.
very complex codes. You have to select this code, that code, you know, do data entry, you know, enter data into this whole thing, 6 pages, and then finally you go there. So what happens? The reality is he first dispatches and then he updates the TMS. Okay. In one of the system studies which I did for a freight forwarder, I came to know, with one of our beautiful systems implemented there, there was no track on how many TUs has been dispatched. So I was really surprised on, but there is a data field for TUs, that drop down selection. Now, what has happened is while implementation, I mean, companies like us also have a problem there. While implementation, somebody lower down said, "Sir, it's very difficult to keep entering all these things, so please remove that mandatory things from there." So one of the mandatory things which was removed was that drop down on TUs. So company gets all data, but doesn't know how many TUs they have shipped in their in this month or year.
Mm.
So that is where the challenge lies. The challenge lies of reducing the load of the logistician who's actually involved in creating data of dispatch.
Mm.
It's in the warehouse, correct? It's in the warehouse. Somewhere where the material lives, the physical and legal possession of the material lives, he has much more challenges than data entry. So data entry is his last preference. In one of the companies I know, they have a data entry Saturday. So they use a 200-page notebook to write down all this thing, and all those LRs and all those things piled up. And Saturday they just enter. So if you have to do a vendor benchmarking on how good they did or whatever, what data is available? So at the
Mm.
end of the day, when somebody uses a TMS from a logistic service provider's perspective, their objective is basically to get data for billing the customer, nothing else.
Mm.
So until and unless this prerogative changes, the logistician is not made to enter tons of data. The whole idea is not to make it complex. If you look at some of the TMS screens, knowledgeable people get mad because there are 250 buttons and people don't know what to do with it. So, responsibility lies with the technology service provider also to create solutions which make it more simpler. See, in today's context, data exists all around us.
Mm.
Okay. The service user is uploading data into the GST board. He gets an
Mm.
e-invoice. So I have seen many of the times customers saying that my data, sir, your data is available with Government of India. Your data is available with every Tom, Dick, and Harry transporter because you keep sending your invoices by email to them. Nobody is asking for data which is not in public domain.
Hmm.
So that kind of an education which has to go in, which says that, look, at least platforms help in holding data and sharing data between various stakeholders, rather than sending data through the most insecure form, which is email, uh, between stakeholders. So
Hmm.
until and unless we create solutions which make operations simple to the logistician who is basically doing the edge of supply chain dispatch, adoption will definitely be a problem. Real time data will be a problem. Now, as a SIM based tracking service provider, let me also tell you one of your biggest problems: onboarding the driver at a warehouse. Okay. I'm sure your, back-end call center is doing most of the job. Now, imagine, is it so difficult to onboard a driver at the warehouse? But the
Hmm.
problem is, where is that priority lie with that guy?
Hmm.
So
True.
these are some of the challenges, which have to be overcome. One way or the other, we have to find a way.
True, true. So, like whatever you're mentioning is so correct, and you have seen the entire journey, right? Uh, one of thing which I definitely like to know, right? As you mentioned that you guys had implemented new technology, there are things which we can do, right? Uh, as a being a startup, right? As a being a young entrepreneur in this industry, I would definitely like to know why any of this startup, SaaS startup or logistic TMS company or WMS company, right? As per my knowledge, there are very few companies who are doing well, and most of the companies who are doing well, they are not working in India. They're going out of India. They are, making the use case here, and then going out of India to sell and get the
Correct.
money, get the
Correct.
get the profit, right? So why it's happening? Is it problem with the industry, problem with the client, or problem with the startup companies or TMS companies?
This problem is very, you know, if you have to be politically correct, we can't answer this problem. So if you basically, I can only put some thoughts to this.
Sure, sir.
In private discussions with investors, BC circles, I discuss this very openly. Uh, but my thought process is different.
Hmm.
Why doesn't a huge organization like SAP, why don't they get into this space?
Hmm.
So if you look at SAP, the last thing which comes out is your gate pass. And
True.
using SAP TMS, they are trying to overreach from there also. But if you look at the service user side TMS, which are very prevalent, like Blue
Hmm.
Yonder and JDA and SAP, and all, very few limited options. Okay, very few limited options. All of them are built on platforms which are 2 decades old. Okay, and they have to flaunt those platforms because they have huge investments. So they have to
Hmm.
still, use those, solutions and sell them more and more. Okay, because it's a sunk cost which they have already got. If you look at the enterprise out market of logistics globally, the spend is 6 trillion. Okay, now it's very attractive for an ERP player who holds the entire data to jump into this business and do something about it. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, the 6 trillion spent is spread across another 60 million, 70 million service providers.
Hmm.
And because that, the 6 trillion doesn't want to increase its cost, you will have to position this at sub $1 range, a transaction, to gain an entry.
Hmm.
Okay. So the biggies, I feel, will wait until there is initiatives. by startups who would consolidate, this millions of these consignments together and bring it to a decent size for the biggies to come into this market, either by buying them or doing any of those things which every company will do to address this market. This market is highly profitable. This market is highly dispersed, so it's very difficult to go and reach there. Okay, it's highly competitive. So this may be one of the reasons that the SaaS providers, the new generation SaaS providers, the startups in this, my thinking is that I'm sure there is a focus of these SaaS providers on a particular silo, a particular problem area of logistics. So if there is a across the band alignment where you provide a platform which acts as a middleware, as a digital 4PL, where you have a zero sum effect of cost in your supply chain execution. That is when you will see, unicorns being built from these kind of SaaS service providers. And if you look at 900 to 1,000 technology startups in this space, there is a struggle to go beyond the $2 million, revenue. There's a struggle.
Yeah, there
And
is.
approximately it is about $5 million to 100,000 revenue. $5 million investment for 100,000 revenue is the rough benchmark if you analyze all these companies. So the challenge is here. The challenge is in adoption. The challenge is that there is no focus into this $200 billion B2B market. If we are able to break through into that market, there is definitely a space for creating $100 million SaaS providers in India, like what E2 Open does elsewhere. Okay, they are a $300 million company last year with an EBITDA of 40%, 50%. So this can happen, and that's the power of SaaS.
Yeah, true. So many things we have discussed. Thank you so much for your time. It was great talking to you, and definitely we are
My
looking
pleasure.
forward to, because there's so many things still pending. I have other questions also, but definitely due to time constraint, I'll definitely like to have